Welcome to the Salem Chamber podcast. I'm Tom Hoffert, CEO of the Salem Chamber, and we're pleased to have you listening. Let's jump right in. Today, the Salem Chamber podcast has Bill Riecke from Bark Boys joining us. Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Here we sit, just a couple of truck drivers.
That's right.
Me with my time at Don Poncho did a lot of deliveries of tortillas and display racks and backing up our sales guys. And Bill, you come from a background of being a truck driver. It allows you to really connect with people on a granular level. But we're going to get to know Bill Riecke a little bit deeper and talk about his company, Bark Boys Inc., who are the reigning business of the year in Salem.
That's right.
A great honor, and I want to hear a little bit more about that. But Bill, if you could start talking a little bit about where were you born, where were you raised, and a little bit about childhood.
Sure. So born 1980 right here in Salem, Oregon. Went to Hayesville Elementary, raised in Jan Ray, probably 2 blocks from Chemeketa Community College. Went to Waldo, went to McKay, played some football. Went to Western Oregon for a few years, decided that that wasn't the place for me, and did a little truck driving and left the state for a couple of years. But yeah, what a great place to be from and now be back.
When you look at Salem and growing up, were you someone who was excited about Salem, or were you one of those who were like, can't wait to get the heck out of here?
No, I was excited about Salem. Had the privilege to be able to travel a little bit and travel the world when I was young. But still, Salem was home. And I remember when I left here, it's like, okay, well, my plan's 4 years. I'm coming right back. That plan went from 4 years to 17 years, but always had a desire to be back in Salem, and this is home. When I moved back here in 2017, having been gone for as long as I had been, you pick up right where you left off with friends and people that you maybe didn't see when you got to come back on vacation once or twice a year and things like that, and see familiar places all over, or familiar faces all over town. It's just a good place to be from and be in.
What were some of the things you enjoyed about Salem in your adolescence and growing up?
Growing up in the neighborhood I grew up in, Jan Ray, my fondest memories is Jan Ray Pool, Pioneer Little League, Cub Scouts at Hayesville Elementary, the Pinewood Derby. Back in the 80s, things were different. The dads were standing just outside the gym where the Pinewood Derby was, and they had a 12-pack of beer and a carton of cigarettes, and they were out there giving the kids some hints on how to try to win the Pinewood Derby, and we're running around with our Pinewood Derby cars, things like that. Pioneer Little League wasn't too different from that. The dad just showed up, and I remember playing baseball in jeans, cleats, and a Pioneer Little League T-shirt. In January Pool in that community, they had swim lessons in the morning. From noon to 1 was free swim for adults, and then from 1 to 4, the kids took over the pool. And there was a bike rack right outside the fence, and every kid from the neighborhood showed up at like 1, and we spent all afternoon swimming in that pool. And then at 4 o'clock, if you're on swim team started. I wasn't on swim team, so my sisters and we would pack up and go do something else. But that was an amazing time of life for me and for all of my friends. I just bumped into someone that I hadn't seen in probably 20 years, and what we discussed was growing up in Jan Ray and what that meant to us to have our community and be involved in all the things I just mentioned. We did all of those things together. And now here we are. I met him at Queen of Peace parking lot where our kids are going to school out together. They're both kindergartners there. So that's pretty cool. That's what I remember about Salem, and what always, I guess, gave me a longing to get back here was that, and you ride your bike everywhere you wanted. We'd ride our bike here. I remember walking my bike across the railroad tracks into West Salem and checking that out at Wallace Marine Park for baseball or softball or something like that. But, that's what Salem was to me growing up in that area. It was a blast.
It's changed a little bit. Our kids are raised a little differently now. Salem has a different feel and look than certainly, and I'm somebody who grew up in this community as well. As you were heading into high school and maybe starting out at Western Oregon, were you a guy who knew what he wanted to do in life, or were you trying to figure things out a little?
No, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. Having the opportunity to play football in college was something that wasn't on my radar, but I certainly wasn't gonna pass that up. There have been moments in my life where I remember my high school coach, Scott Defoe, who's having great success at South, for, like, the last 20 years, great man. I remember him telling me, "Bill, you can play football at any level you want to." And there's been some times in my life where that's kinda haunted me. I was like, "Well, why am I driving this truck? Did he when he said any level I want to, did he mean that?" So there's been some times where I thought about that, but, I'm glad that I didn't pursue that because I don't think I was really that good of a football player. But that was kind of a pause in my plan when I went to Western and played football there, and I don't think I ever played a down actually on the field. I was on the team, but I got redshirted as a freshman and, didn't make it academically after that to come back for my sophomore year. And then, my plan fell right into place, with the exception of being gone 17 years rather than 4 years. I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and by the time I had left Salem, in 2001, I I had accomplished a lot of that, and it may not seem like a very lofty goal, but one of my goals as a kid was to be a truck driver. I looked up to people who were truck drivers, in our family business. We had a lot of truck drivers and they were kind of put on a pedestal because they're important folk to us. And I had accomplished that by the time I left here. When I turned 18, I got my CDL. I started driving. And that was something that I looked up to. And it's opened doors for me. And at times you wouldn't think, but it has helped my career in other areas because it did open a door for me somewhere.
Well, what Bill's referring to is Bill manages and owns Bark Boys, uh, and Bark Boys is delivering high quality products, aggregate, everything that you would need to make your residence or your commercial property look beautiful. He partners with a number of people in our community. Bill, when you look at childhood and you mentioned you saw truck drivers as something that you aspired to do, tell me a little bit about maybe your parents or how you grew up and what business you're referring to at that time.
Sure. So, my family has owned Bark Boys since 1978. Started in 1973, actually called Rico's Deck of Bark. My grandfather, Gene Rico, started that. Moved to Salem in 78. That's when my grandfather's son in law, which is my dad, became a partner. And, nobody really wants to be in the trucking business typically. There's not a whole heck of a lot of money involved in that. It's a lot of hard work. Trucks are expensive, fuel is expensive. But when I for our business, we have to have trucks. You can't run our business and be very profitable without having trucks to haul your product in, deliver to your customers. And then, when things have gotten tight, traditionally our company has fallen back on trucking. And that could mean that we have hauled out of sawmills into paper mills, or, we're hauling units of lumber from here to LA, or, we've hauled jet engines to New York. And, we've kind of been all over. We don't do a lot of that anymore. But it's been something that's been very important to our business. And, you know, I tell people that it's one of those skills. Truck driving is one of those skills that, something you can always fall back on. There's always a shortage of that profession, because it's not overly glamorous, although you can make a darn good living doing that. Um, but yeah, it's something that's always in demand.
When you looked and saw your father
Mhm.
as a business owner, what were some of the um, maybe things people have a misconception about business owners? It seems like, well, make a little money, you're free all the time. Isn't quite the case, is it?
No, it's not. It's very time consuming, very time consuming. He ran the business a little bit differently than I run it, but he was there all the time. If the company was open 7 days a week, he was there 7 days a week. And they started a bit later in the day, so that may have helped, but they would start, 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and he'd be there from 7:30 to 8 or 7:30 to 5. Um, and that was every day that they were there. So it time consuming. Some of those trips I traveled around the world as a kid. My dad wasn't with me, because I had to run the business, and he was very dedicated to that and to making it a success. Um, but yeah, even today, my daughter, uh, my youngest daughter turned 13 on December 7th, and my wife has this tradition where she makes birthday breakfast for everyone's birthday every year. And I was sitting on the couch with my daughter Zara, and we are looking at old pictures and stuff, and when, real little, and I was kind of giving her a hard time. I was like, look at this picture. This is when you really loved me back then. And she goes, yeah, you didn't work every day then. I was like, oh, she's noticed how often I'm gone. Um, and it does. It takes that to be successful. And I always argue as well, we get to do some pretty neat things, because of our hard work. And she gets that, but still, it's a lesson for me. Having only been a business owner for 5 years, that the work life balance, it is important. It is important, and I forget that easily.
It's not uncommon for me on the drive, my commute into work, which is a fast commute.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. I'm neighbors to where your
Right.
facility's at. But very common for me at about 6:15, 6:20 in the morning to roll past Spark Boys, and you're already there grinding with your team. Your team is in the yard. They're loading trucks. They're moving different product around, getting ready for the day, cleaning vehicles,
Mhm.
maintaining vehicles. Um, your kids probably are not awake when you're heading off to work most times.
No, they're not. I have one early riser. His name's Weston. He's up fairly early, but I beat him out of the house more often than not. It's funny that we're talking about this right now because yesterday morning was a morning that I dragged my feet going into work, and I think Jennifer said last night that all of my kids mentioned, "Hey, Dad was home this morning," and that doesn't happen
Is
very often.
everything okay?
Yeah, that was kinda, I think that might have been the real question behind their comment, but, yeah, that doesn't happen often, and, we're still growing, Tom. This is our 50th year, in business, but we're not where I wanna be. We're certainly not where my wife and I wanna be as business partners. We've got a long ways to go, and the only way I know to get there is just hard work and dedication. And I think it's important that I lead from the front and be there early mornings with our team and um, help get them going for the day.
Yeah, one of the things you and we've shared some stories before about me working with our route drivers, and
Mhm.
they start at 2:30, 3:30 in the morning during my time at Don Poncho, and so I made sure quite regularly to come and load vehicles with
Right.
them and help build a workforce and a culture. Um, Tell me a little bit about your time once you departed Oregon and you moved to Arizona,
Mhm.
and tell me about that experience and what you did for those 17 years, and maybe people who know you well in this community may know that story, but I bet we have a lot of listeners that are not familiar with what you did during that time.
Yeah, so I actually left Salem October of 2001, moved to California, was there for 4 years, worked for the Department of Defense there, and then I moved to Arizona after that. Um, Arizona, I ended up working for the Caterpillar dealership there. Phenomenal organization, um, owned by a family that cares about their employees, and really, I owe a lot of probably 95% of my business, mindset to working for that company. The people that I reported to directly were amazing men that, took some time to invest in me, probably at times when I didn't deserve some of that time. Um, and I reflect back on that often. And so, I started out again, when I talk about truck driving, that's the job I got when I first, went to work there. I was driving by this Caterpillar dealer. I think their campus is like 40 or 50 acres, their main office of just this all yellow iron everywhere. It's a very cool facility. Driving by, a lot of people say it's an intimidating place. I never really felt intimidated by it, but I was a little gun shy of a large company, what I perceived a large company, and not wanting to be a number, not wanting to be an employee. I want the owner to know who I am. And, I happened to bump into a guy who worked there, and he promoted the place, um, as something that I was very interested in. So I went and applied there, and during that time, I they needed a lot of people, a lot of help, and this company is, I don't know, today I think they have 3,000 employees. Back then, I think it was 1,500 employees. And I went to HR, filled out an application, like, "Well, we're not really looking right now." So, "Oh, okay." So I left, and within 20 minutes, I got a phone call. "Hey, could you interview tomorrow? You have a commercial driver's license. We need somebody at our transport division." "I'd love to." So I went and interviewed there, and, not really wanting to be a truck driver, but that's the job they had available, and it was an awesome job. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I started out at the bottom there, and didn't take long to kinda move up in the truck driving, division of that company, and we're doing heavy haul, hauling heavy equipment. We would leave the yard with, 4 state police officers and 2 pilot cars because of how big and long and heavy the load was, and it's just that was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, traveled around the country, ended up in Canada, and, that's actually what I think that the 6 weeks that I was gone in Canada, my son Bill was real little, and I got back, I looked at him and the growth you had that I had missed over that 6-week time period. uh, I was just kinda done with driving truck and being gone, and, um, I out of some frustration, I actually tried to quit that company, and I'll never forget this. The guy I worked for at the time, his name was Dennis Stapleton. He waited for me, and it was like 6, 7 o'clock in the evening on a Friday night. He waited for me in his office, and I was coming and bringing my paperwork in, and I was gonna clean out my truck, and he goes, "Hey, what are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm cleaning out my truck." He goes, "Well, why?" And I said, "Well, I quit." And he goes, "Yeah, I heard that." And, what he said to me is, "It's too bad for you. I don't accept letters of resignation past 5 on Fridays." And I said, "Well, that's fine. I'm not giving you one anyway. I'm done." He's like, "No, you're not. This company, Empire Southwest is the name of the company." He says, "This company cannot have someone like you leave. You just can't. We're gonna find something for you to do." So he said, "Take the weekend off. When you come back to work on Monday, show up here at 7, dress nice, you never know who you meet." I ended up not meeting anybody when I showed back up on Monday except for Dennis, and we just talked some more, and I did some odds and ends for him, and we got on the intranet, and we looked at all the job postings within the company, anything I was remotely interested in, and I applied for things that I had no business applying for. I wasn't qualified, nothing of the sort, but I just kept everything. He's like, "Just get interviews within the company, and somebody will pick you up. We're what you need," is what he kept telling me, and I believed him, whether I should or shouldn't have. I believed him, and I ended up becoming a product support sales representative in our mining division, calling on our large mines. There's a lot of copper mined in the state of Arizona, um, and that was July of 2008. We all know what the economy was doing and getting ready to do, and I think during that time we laid off 40% of the company got laid off, and huge reduction in overall business. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, well, I'm kind of an intern here right now. I, I better get my truck driving skills back because that's exactly what I'm going back to doing. And, um, you know, th I ended up working for a guy named Dennis Sorensen, who I think saw a lot in me, thankfully, and ended up taking a guy who had been, I think, 35 years and moved him out of his sales role to a planning role in one of the shops, which he did really well at. And kinda tossed me the keys to a brand new pickup and an account list and said, "Go to work." And I had about 3 months worth of training, and, I did okay. I did okay. I got to work with a guy named Steve Marsegan that taught me a lot about relationships and building relationships and fostering them, we actually, uh the 2 of us struggled to work with each other a lot, I think because, um, we both had high hopes for each other and where we could go with our career and what was going on, and if one of us let each other down, we weren't afraid to let the other guy know it, sometimes very inappropriately, I think we both learned from that, but, that was a 5-year time period, while I was in the mining sales division of that company, and it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot, and there are lessons. I used to meet with my boss, I think it was once a week, um, just to visit about things we're doing with customers and things like that, how to approach different people internally within the company, um, and I learned so much from that. So much of that I learned today, and try to pass on to my people. little things I learned, and this wasn't from dentists, but just from the company in general. They would send us to classes internally. They had their own training division. Send us to classes internally, how to send an email. Well, I remember when I saw that come out that they want us to take, it's like, well, I send emails every day. I know how to do that. Well, if you ever see an email from me, it starts out the same every time. It just says hello, and then the body of the email. And I always put thank you. I don't put thanks. I don't put hi or hey Tom, good morning Tom, because you don't know what mood your reader's gonna be in when they read your email. It's really hard to get offended at hello, right? If you just put Tom in the body of your email, you can get offended at that. You can. It just depends on what mood you're in, what time of day, and putting a time or day on there is a problem too because you may look really foolish if it's the morning and you put afternoon things like so. You just start it off with hello and say thank you. And I always put thanks before that, but thank you just sounds so much better than just thanks. So little things like that that I have never forgotten that company taught us, that I implement every day. I'm sure people when I'm exchanging emails back and forth are annoyed by the fact that I continue it. Hello, hello, and no matter how long the thread is, I continue to say hello in that email. Sometimes I do forget, but my staff does the same thing because they they've they've emailed me, and we have a class when they first start. Hey, we start every email hello, and we put thank you. And your email signature has to be professional. We had a time there where people at Empire were putting the helmet logo of their our favorite NFL team, or some slogan or some inspirational quote, and we did away with all of that. Make it professional, make it so that it's business. And those are things I continue to use today.
Have we ever talked about this between us before? Ever?
No.
Okay. When you get an email from me, it says hello, Bill, or whoever I'm talking
Sure.
to. And every email I close with my best,
Mhm.
Tom. I got challenged by a mentor once that said, imagine your start is because we can't tell tone in emails.
Mhm.
The start of the email is set the tone.
Right.
Hello.
Mhm.
We all get the emails, no subject line, no, just
Right.
right into it.
Right.
And I kind of appreciate those from certain people too.
Sure, sure.
Um, hello. And they challenged me, Tom, what would you want that person to know in closing the most about you?
Right.
That I'm giving my best at the chamber.
Sure.
So I say, my best,
Yeah.
Tom.
Right.
And you and I have never talked about this
haven't.
one time.
We haven't.
And that's really interesting. Great tactical advice, by the way, Bill.
Well, and
Thank you for sharing that.
we've both been fortunate to have good mentors and
Yes.
people that cared. And that was a class put on by the company. They have training instructors that they were paying full time instructors to be at the Training Institute of Empire Machinery, and that was their soft skills training. There were other things I probably should have signed up to take classes for, but that was one of many. And that's worked out really well. And I tell you, working for a guy like Dennis Sorensen, who very picky and has very high standards he wants to hold his team to, taught me a lot. And I was victim of thinking, okay, well, I'm sending an internal email. I don't need to be professional anymore, right? These guys, they know I'm on their team, and I'm not mad at them. I'm not trying to be abrasive, but I would fire off this flaming email of lining people out, and sometimes, overstepping my bounds of directing people that didn't work for me. I never had anyone at that company work for me, which was it was nice, but overstepping bounds of being appropriate and respectful of people who worked for someone else, not meaning to. But looking back and having Dennis kind of show me like, "Hey, man, this is what you said in this email." Like, "Oh, well, I didn't mean." He's like, "Well, I know you. I know you didn't mean that." But that's how they read this email, and they're loaded for bear when they come to talk to you, and now they're talking to me because of the email you sent. And he's like, "I'm not gonna defend you. This is your mess to fix." And I learned a lot from that. I mean, they're valuable lessons. That 5 years working for Dennis, there's 2 times he probably should have fired me, and one time was he and I yelling back and forth at each other. I was disrespectful, I would say, inappropriate, but, and I would argue he was too, but what a great experience. I look back on that now and I'm laughing. I think he would too if we were visiting about it. Um, but, the way he was able to handle me and teach me so many valuable lessons that really I do. I think back on that today, and, I worked for him for 5 years, and I worked for a guy named Darren Ross for another 5 years. And they both taught me so many lessons while working for them down there, Darren, we were just talking about this the other day at home. Um, Darren Ross, when we were leaving Arizona to move to Oregon, and I'm leaving a phenomenal career, and we had run out of boxes to box our stuff up, so I ran to Home Depot to buy some more boxes, and I get back and I recognize the pickup in my driveway, but I'm not putting it together. Get in the house there, and there is my boss, Darren Ross, and his wife, and Darren's holding my 6-month-old little boy at the time while visiting with Jennifer while she's continuing to pack the house. And after I left, Empire in Arizona, moved up here, I don't know, probably once a month for almost a year, Darren would call, "Hey, how you doing?" Or send a text. That's pretty good people, and that's not rare in that company. It's just an amazing company and great people that I got to work for. And they all taught me so much, and I try to use what they've taught me all the time. Darren, he was big on, an employee or someone else gets you fired up, handle it tomorrow. Don't handle it on the spot. Um, and he's right. He's
24-hour cooling down
yeah,
period's a
yeah.
healthy
He's
thing.
he's so right. He's so right. And there's been I have not always handled things that way, but if I haven't, I think about that, and hopefully that next time I do. Lots of great lessons from that company, and the executive vice president, Jim Smith, great story. Started out pushing a broom as a mechanic helper in the Tucson store, and now he runs the place. Just an amazing guy, and I spent about a day with him a year. He would come ride with me. I pick up while we called on customers, and that 6, 8 hour day, the lessons that I learned from him, and they weren't, it was just out of conversation. Eh, how he handled things and how he handled customers was phenomenal. And once a year, we got some FaceTime with the owner. His name's Jeff Whiteman, and he would just same thing, out of conversation or make one comment, you're like, "Oh, that makes so much sense. How can I use this, right, to help me better manage my business and be better at what he's paying me to do?" And when we won Business of the Year, those guys got a text from me. "Hey, thank you," right? "Wanted to let you know we're doing well up here, and I really do believe the reason we're doing so well 95% is what you guys taught me." And I'm in touch with those guys often, So, great family of employees down there and just great business.
Let's talk about that transition back to Oregon. We're going to go back in history later on that because
Okay.
I have something you skipped over that I'm not going to let you skip
Okay.
over. Um, let's talk about that time where you're transitioning from Phoenix Metro,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep.
Back up to Oregon. Your family is in full swing.
Yep.
You got babies at home.
Yeah.
Jennifer's, is she excited about moving back? Tell us about that transition.
Um, Gosh, what a rough time in our life. We were very excited to move, up here. Um A lot of things didn't work out like we had hoped. We both came from families who owned businesses. So while we had amazing careers, Jennifer, she sold medical supplies, and that was a great market down there. Worked for a national company, and the year before we had moved up here, was number one in the nation in sales. So she's just, she's killing it. She's doing really well. And I bring her up here, and you know what? You're gonna run the house and help me run the business. And she's like, "Yeah, I don't know about that." I get up here, and my dad and I had always struggled with our view of the world, and it took me 3 days, and we had a blow up, and I was ready to move back to
Is
Arizona.
this in Corvallis or is this Salem?
This is Salem.
Okay.
We had a different view of the world, lots of different reasons for that, but I called Jennifer, like, she hadn't actually moved up here yet. I was up here it was just my oldest son, Bill, and and I called her and said, "Stop hacking. We're done. I'm moving back down there. I'll call Darren Ross, get my job back." And she talked me off the ledge, thankfully. Um, but it was a big transition, career-wise, lifestyle change. We at the time, we were a family of 5. Jennifer was pregnant with our 6th child at the time. Trying to find a home in Salem area that was big enough that we could afford. There was lots of homes that were big enough, but out of our price range. And then the next challenge was just finding one that could fit us, and we ended up finding a placeholder home that was, it was tough for us to go from a brand new custom built home to, a very small home, but we fit. It kept us dry in the wintertime, and it kept us cool in the summer, and that's what we needed for a couple years till we were able to find something that we could afford and would fit us. In going from that was one of the biggest blow ups for me. That day 3 blow up I had with my dad was going from a company like Empire Southwest to Bark Boys Incorporated in Salem, Oregon, was hiring an employee. That's what the blow up was about. My dad wanted to hire a guy that worked for a competitor that day. He had left that day, came to Bark Boys to do an interview, and my dad was going to hire him, start the next day. And I was very appropriate during the interview and things like that. The guy left, and I said, "Hey, I'm not doing that. We're not gonna hire that guy. He works for the competition. If he wants to give 2 weeks notice to the competition and come to work for us, that's one thing. But we're not gonna do this, and here's why. Because in 2 weeks from now, they're gonna call him back. He's gonna go right back to them and leave us high and dry. We're not doing that. Now, if he wants to do it right, we'll take him on board." And my dad's like, "No, I don't agree with you. We need somebody right now, and this is how we're gonna do it." And I was like, "You know what? I don't wanna be a part of a business like this. That's not attractive to me. I want really good people around us that are committed and treat their former employer really well." And I just told him right then, I said, "Hey, this isn't a place for me. I've made a mistake." And my dad goes, "Okay." I was like, thinking to myself, I've left an amazing career. My wife's at home packing right now. One of my sons is here, right? The other 4 kids are on their way. This isn't good. My beautiful, dedicated wife patched it together for both of us. Um, but just that huge difference of how we view the world, affected me right away. And we worked with my dad for the next 8 months or so until we were able to buy him out. He had this mindset. He wanted to hit 40 years and be done. So he hit 40 years February of 2018, and he was done. So then we signed March 30th of 18 and bought the business. My goal that first year was to double the business. Whatever he had done and worked the last 40 years to build, I wanted to double that in our first 12 months. And we fell $200,000 shy of beating that. But we were really close. And the next year, I beat it by $200,000. So it took me 2 years to more than double plus 200 grand. Very proud of that. A lot of hard work. Great team. We couldn't have done it without the hard work and dedication of our team, and they're just phenomenal.
Well, we're going to talk about Bark Boys next, and want to learn a little bit about your leadership and what qualifies somebody to be business of the year. And I'll give a little editorial on that. But I also want to talk about a portion of your history and service. You're a patriot, and you served our country as a United States Marine.
I did.
Would you tell us a little bit about that experience?
I will. It's Thanks for calling me out on it. I knew that you recognized I had skipped over it by telling I worked for the Department of Defense. It's something that I often don't bring up, not because I'm not proud to be a Marine, and not because I'm not proud to serve our country, because I am both. Um, but I don't bring it up a lot because I think my experiences pale in comparison to others, and I don't ever want to overshadow any of that. I also always tell people that, I volunteered and then I was paid on top of that. But very proud to have served our country and to be a United States Marine. I left here October 8th, 2001, so less than 30 days after September 11th. Joined the infantry. I knew what I was getting into. Um, enlisted in the Marine Corps at the time that patriots were enlisting in the Marine Corps. They knew what we were going to go do. Especially you join the Marine Corps, and on top of that, you join the infantry. You know what you're going to go do. So, the stories of the backgrounds of those men that I went and fought with, phenomenal people. What an honor to be with them um, during the time that our country needed us. And we all felt that way. We're all motivated for the same reasons. Um, uh, uh, just a wonderful time. And there was a time in my life where we wouldn't have a conversation without you knowing I was in the Marine Corps, because I wanted you to know. That's how proud I was of that, and as I've accomplished other things in my life, became a father, which there's nothing better in my mind. I'm very proud of my marriage as well. I'm very proud of our business. I don't want to say that stuff outshines being a Marine, but that will the pride of being a Marine will always be there. But I want to focus on other things, and the other thing too is um, I don't want to highlight the Marine Corps for my. I got 3 sons. I don't want any of my sons to go in the Marine Corps. I don't. Especially being an infantryman and going and fighting 2 tours in Iraq like I did. The things that you see and do, nobody should really have to see and do, and I certainly don't want my sons doing that. I just don't. Um, my grandfather was in the Marine Corps 38 years, fought hand to hand combat against Chinese in Korea, did 4 tours in Vietnam, had some stories, and he always told me he's very proud. He's Sergeant Major. He was, that's the highest enlisted rank in the Marine Corps. And I said, Bill, don't join the Marine Corps. Don't do it. I could never understand, well, why? You're so proud. His license plate said Sergeant Major. You're so proud to be a Marine. Why wouldn't you want that for your grandson? And I'll never forget holding my son Bill when he was born. Oh, it clicked. Like, I get it. I don't want this for my son. And he's actually, I had bought a Marine Corps camouflage blanket for him, and that's what I'm holding. And I have a picture somewhere. I'm holding him wrapped in that camouflage Marine Corps blanket. But I know at the same time, I'm thinking, I don't want that for my son. So I don't want to promote it for my family. I want them to stay here, or stay relatively safe in the United States, and not have the desire to join the Marine Corps. But talk about a place where I learned a lot. I learned a lot from a lot of good men. I just having the opportunity to work with some of those guys, and I remember the first time I called in a medevac, calling in a 9-digit grid for the helo to come rescue our guys. I messed that up so bad. I was nervous. I called in the wrong grid, and Major Rick Gannon got on the radio back to me. He's like, "Hey, I know you'll get it right when you can." That's all he said. Calming voice. He had full confidence in me. And guess what? We got the helos in there and got our guys out of there. That he was killed in combat a few months later. Um, what a hero. That's a company commander in an infantry company, Marine Corps, leading from the front. He was helping kick in the gate to a courtyard after one of his Marines had been shot to render them first aid, and he got shot and killed. Um, you know, Trent Gibson, another leader. He's one of those guys. It's so simple. It's like, "You're a Marine. We fought together. I love you." That's the end of it, right? And he'll be there for you till the day you die. Just an amazing man. A guy named George Schreffler that we all kind of looked up to. Um, and I remember I was officers of the day. We were back in 29 Palms after our second tour in Iraq. I was officer of the day. I was the only corporal in the battalion that stood officer of the day, which I don't know was a good or a bad thing, but I was saying officer of the day, and I came out and I've got my cover on, my duty belt, and he's standing on the sidewalk out front of the battalion office, and render salute, good evening, sir, and he snaps. He doesn't have his cover on. Snaps position attention, and he actually beat me to it. As a good evening, Corporal Riecke. Before I could say good evening, sir. Just that mutual respect there. We had worked closely on some things in country, and um, just a guy that I remember. There were some things happening in our area of operations, and he was calm, cool, and collected. And I think about that often. Just the amount again, the amount of patriots I got to work with. Jeremy Graysick, my first platoon commander, ended up being the lead liaison for the CIA and the Marine Corps. I mean, when you look at what you think a Marine is in terms of physically fit and how they carry themselves, lacrosse player, um, just an amazing man, and he was killed. Um, my second platoon commander was Isaac Moore. Same thing. I mean, if you were to chisel out these men of what you thought were going to be lieutenants in the Marine Corps, these are them. Tim Burke is another one. These guys are just amazing people and leaders. And I was asked by, of all people, Peter Courtney, who I played basketball. Talk about growing up in Salem. I played basketball with his sons through the Boys and Girls Club. And when I first moved back here, he recognized me, stopped in and bought some bark dust from us. And he's like, "Hey, did you think, your officers were very smart? The Marine Corps kind of, maybe they're not the smartest guys because they're just tougher than everybody else." I was like, "Yeah, I think they're all very smart." Um, all phenomenal guys, just great guys, and the ability to let a junior non-commissioned officer lead helps me today lead my business. Having a platoon sergeant like Elia Fontecchio, also killed in action, let me lead and learn from him. It's just unreal. My second tour, I worked with our platoon sergeant, Matt Carpenter. Just these guys let me lead and do my thing. I mean, we're talking when we were back in the United States, we had to do an op. I can't remember what it's called, a training exercise in Yuma, Arizona. And I show up. I'm a 23, 24-year-old guy, junior non-commissioned officer in the Marine Corps. I've got 5 Humvees and, I don't know, 50 Marines, machine guns, rifles, everything, and we're cruising down I-10, right? And we pull into Yuma Air Station, and there's an old Huey pilot that we had to link up with. He's like, "Well, who's in charge?" I go, "I am, sir." He's like, "Corporal in the Marine Corps still does this?" And he told me when I was leaving, "Hey, it's nice to see a non-commissioned officer doing what they're supposed to do and leading Marines and doing their job." Well, if it wasn't for, the leadership along the way, I wouldn't be in a position to do that. And so I was very fortunate to have people invest in me and work for amazing people. So hopefully I answered your question about the Marine Corps.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you being vulnerable in a space that you and I have conversated largely in private about that, but being willing to share a little bit about that experience
Yeah, yeah, you almost had me in tears.
and and mentorship.
Yeah.
And one thing that can't be lost is the debt of gratitude that our country owes the men and women who bravely step forward and serve. And we're humbled by that. Thank you, Bill, for that. Um, as you look at your business today, you're a leader who's had a lot of world experience, um, but you are leading a group of individuals who have rallied around a belief system and a culture of service to the community and being exceptional at their jobs. And within our organization, the pinnacle of that is being recognized as the Salem Business of the Year. Tell me about what that experience was like. You're a pretty humble dude, so I imagine it was probably not your favorite thing initially.
Yeah. Well, what an honor. We're all aware in the business community there are awards that you can essentially buy. You can, there's a number of them, and they do a really good job, and that's fun. This is something that the Business of the Year, Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, is voted on by your business peers. So what better honor, right, than when I got the phone call from you, and you had an audience in your office, and I could hear them, their enjoyment of the announcement to me over the phone. What more of an honor could I get than be recognized by the business community? And like I said, when we received that award, at the luncheon that day, I have been in people's offices, and I have seen that award on their mantle among many other awards, and always thought, "Well, one day we're gonna get that." And, when you called me, it wasn't on my radar that we'd even be in the running. Um, so that spoke again from the lessons I've learned from the guys I worked for in the Marine Corps, the guys I worked for at Empire, all a tip of the cap to them. Hey, your investment in me and my leadership abilities has paid off. And then what a tip of the hat to the guys the guys and gals that work with me now every day, that they've listened to those lessons and they've implemented them. And we put ourselves in a position through hard work and dedication that our peers recognized us. That's what that meant to me. What a tip of the hat to my team. I'm pretty fussy about a lot of things. I don't like the name of my business. I think you and I in private have talked about that. It doesn't lend itself to a place where you think, a bunch of professionalism. It just doesn't. So, when I bought the company, it was in the contract. I could not change the name, and having been in Salem for 45 years, there's probably some validity to maintaining that name. But um, I didn't like that name, and I thought, "Okay, well, how do we overcome that and make it to where we are seen as a professional business?" Well, we're gonna wear uniforms, right? Our guys, the first thing we're gonna, because before it was whatever T-shirt you want to wear, just throw it on and go to work. We're gonna wear uniforms. We're gonna be recognizable in our community. Again, I remember working. You can't wear your uniform off base in the Marine Corps, right? So I never got to have to puff my chest out wearing my camis that said U.S. Marines on the side of it or on the chest. But when I worked at Empire, when I first started there, we had uniform shirts and it said Empire Cat on it. I remember going to the barbershop and being so proud to wear an Empire shirt. I want my team to have the same, and it costs, this is sad, but it costs a little more to have American flag put on the sleeve of our uniform shirts. Every one of them has it. And I'm so fussy that there for a while, instead of being a sewn flag on the patch, it was a printed patch. So the stars and stripes were printed on a patch and sewn on. No, pull that all off of there. I want it to look professional and be something that my guys are proud to wear. So that was something we do. And then the other thing that I'm sure my guys hate me for this, but we wash our trucks every morning. Every morning. We're not we're in a dirty, dusty, this time of year, muddy facility. So before the truck leaves, it gets washed. And we wash in the rain, we wash in the snow. We stopped washing in the ice because we it's potential for a slip and some time off that would be unfortunate. But we want to have our equipment looking clean. And I actually kind of stole that idea from a car dealership called Sewell GMC Buick Cadillac in Dallas, Texas. Jennifer and I bought a Tahoe from them years ago, and I was so impressed with how they did business. I started doing research. I found out that they had written a book called Customers for Life by Carl Sewell. And I read that book and I keep a copy of it on my desk today and I give it as a gift often. I read that book and I wanted to know what were they doing so well and what were they highlighting in terms of customer service. And one of the things in there he says, steal what you can. What he means by that? Steal the ideas. So the idea of cleaning our trucks every morning before we leave came from that book. And it's a little bit different. They were cleaning the bathroom. So the waiting room at their dealership for service or sales or whatever it may be, they clean it every hour on the hour. They found that polishing the tile every 2 or 3 months in the bathroom is not as cost effective as replacing it every 7 years. They want it looking sharp and crisp and clean all the time. And their thought behind that was, well, wait a second. If you'll take care of the bathroom this well, you're going to take care of my car when it's being serviced really well. You're going to take care of my experience purchasing a new car really well. And it's worked for them. And the best compliment we can get from our customers is, gosh, you just got a brand new truck? No, 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 that one's 20 years old. But they love that. And we have actually had the comment come back to us. Hey, we do business with you because we see your equipment out on the road and how clean it is. And we think that if you're going to take care of your equipment that well, you're going to take care of us that well. And it's working. And I love that. I love that. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money paying our employees to wash their truck that they're in every day. And um, it's kind of our calling card. We want our stuff looking clean, and that's how we overcome what I think is somewhat of an unprofessional name or unprofessional sounding name, and it's attracting customers. We have an amazing customer base, and it's attracting good people. So business of the year, it comes back to a culmination of all these lessons I learned, the lesson I've been able to teach my team, and then the attention to detail to how we handle our customers. Um, it's just what a what a what a good tap on the shoulder of, hey, you're doing a good job. But I'm also one of those guys that, okay, well, what's the next award that we can look for in terms of what's our goal? We I'm not going to rest, right? We have a long ways to go. So yeah, what an honor.
Well, you very deserving, and there's a lot of criteria that goes in to the selection of the business of the year. Very diverse community, business community group that comes together to review nominations. You were nominated by many of your peers, which is another great honor,
Oh
quite
man,
honestly.
yeah.
And when you think of the role of your employees in ensuring your business's success, what are some of the unique ways you take care of your workforce that because you have very little turnover, and when we part of the process once a business of the year is identified is we talk to the employees. We
Sure.
want to get the employees' perspective, not just the head cheese.
Right.
Tell me a little bit about the experience that your employees go through being in the Bark Boys culture.
Sure. So appreciating them is huge. And I'm a pretty simple-minded guy, and I like just a simple thank you. And when I see my guys and office gals, um, I thank them. I ask them, "Hey, how you doing?" I had an employee stop me a couple weeks ago, and he says, "Hey, you ask me how I'm doing every day." And he goes, "But I never ask you." I was like, "Well, I wasn't offended ever by that, by him not asking me. It wasn't his maybe he doesn't I just never gave any thought to it." But he stopped and goes, "You ask me every day, how am I doing? I never ask you, how are you doing?" That's pretty cool. That's really cool. We appreciate our people, and I think that's what it is. We have people that are working at 30 years of being at Bark Boys. And we have 2 sets of father-son combos that work for us. They don't work together, but, that also is a huge compliment to me because if it wasn't a good place to work, you wouldn't send your son there. Um, my oldest son, Bill, works there. My little boys, they work there. Just ask them, they'll tell you. But we try to work really hard. I try to teach something darn near every day to the team. And what's cool about it is we're we're doing a lot of outside the box type things. I think that attracts people a lot. They want something new, and they don't want to just sell 3/4 miles crushed gravel all day long and hemlock and fir bark dust all day long. They want something new and different, something that challenges them. If you are a mother who works for us, Mother's Day, you get a bouquet of flowers from Jennifer and I. If you are the wife of someone who works for us and your mom, you get a bouquet of flowers from us on Mother's Day. We recognize your birthday. You know, I never worked for a company that gave out Christmas bonuses. We give out Christmas bonuses. Um, your 1 year anniversary, you get $100 at 1 year. At 2 years, you get two. The guy's been here 29 years. $2,900 check on his 29th year. When employees when they hit 25 years, they get a company pickup. And I think we try to, and we've since COVID, we've kind of backed away from this. We really need to get back to doing a better job of this. But we try to once a quarter get together as a company, and not everybody can make it every time, but it's a good time to get your family around those you work with, so they know when you're at home telling stories at the dinner table who you're talking about, and they can put a face to the name of who you're telling the story about. So we've always gone to a pizza parlor, something like that, that can accommodate and anymore, we're getting, almost 100 people if with all the employees, and they bring their families. That's the other thing. When I bought the business, there's 5 employees, including the owner. And we're 48, 49 this year. A lot of growth.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. A lot of growth, but just great people. I think being appreciative and investing in them too. I had a guy this last Saturday. I pulled in mid morning, and he was doing 2 things that I don't allow. And one is to have your shirt untucked, and he was smoking a cigarette where customers could see him. So I said, "Hey, put out a cigarette, tuck in your shirt." And going back to the Darren Ross lesson about not handling things right away and not giving it time to cool down. So I went upstairs, sitting at my desk. I was like, "You know what? I haven't spent enough time just visiting with him lately. Let's do that." So I called downstairs and said, "Hey, when he gets done with his task, send him up." So he came up. We didn't talk about smoking a cigarette or tucking in his shirt. "How you doing? How's your kids? What's your plans for Christmas?" That's what the conversation was like. We didn't need to talk about the other stuff. He knew. But that's the same gentleman that during the peak of our busy season in the spring, he's working 70 hours a week. We'll call and say, "Hey, I know you're really busy on my days off. Do you need any help?" I believe it's because we had conversation like we did Saturday. Sitting in my office, feet kind of kicked up on the desk, just visiting. Took 10 minutes. I loved it. I hope he did. I think he shows that he does by being that guy, one of the guys, one of many, I guess I should say, that calls in on their days off. "I know you're busy. Can I help?" You know? And believe me, these guys work hard. They're tired and they deserve their days off and they need their days off. But they still know. what our goal is. They still know about our growth and where we wanna go, and they wanna be a part of that, and it's a lot of fun. Those guys work hard, but they have some fun.
I love it. And that's a great story of entrepreneurship and how we take care of people
Yep.
and how taking care of people creates the growth that we
Mhm.
want to see. Um, three topics I want to wrap on. One is there are some people that don't think Salem deserves all our time, effort, concern, volunteerism, generosity. I disagree adamantly. I love this place. I don't like all things, but I do believe that we can make it a better place for our families and our community and our business employees to love and enjoy being here. Why are you proud to call Salem home?
I think because there's people like you here that have the same feelings about this community as I do. Let's invest in this community. Let's if it's not what we want it to be, let's make it that way. Let's get it there. There's a lot to offer in this community. Um, and we're not that far off. It's gonna take some hard work, get things maybe to right the ship a little bit. Um, but I think that's what I love. You know, and I've been very fortunate. I had some people I've worked for invest in me, take some time to mentor me, still will answer questions when needed. Um, but you take a guy like Rich Duncan. I've never worked with Rich. When I left here, I think he was maybe in the infancy of his business. Didn't know him. When I got back into town, of course, I said they're doing really well. Um, and I reached out to Rich and I just, hey, could we go have breakfast? Maybe grab a cup of coffee. I don't drink coffee, but let's just visit. And he took the time. We sat on a sidewalk outside some restaurant in downtown Salem on a beautiful morning. And he took the time to visit, I think, darn near 2 hours. We sat there and we just talked about what's important to us about Salem and how do we as business owners get there. So you have people like that, and I can sit in a room typically of business owners in Salem, and I have a personal connection of some sort. I was thinking about it a few weeks ago. One evening, we had an event that you and I are both at, and the Dalkey family, and the Donofrio family, just go around the room, and I have a personal connection there of some type, and it's that attracts me to Salem, and also that I hope that my one of my kids who hopefully buy me out one day, they'll have those same attractions and connections with people in Salem. But, I think we should be investing, especially in the community that gives back to us by giving us their business. Dick Withnell says it best. He tells a story about when he bought Teague Dodge and how he was kind of called out and said, "Hey, well, you didn't buy it; your customers did." Well, that's a pretty good lesson,
That was
and
Jerry Frank who called him out
right,
and said,
right,
"You didn't buy that business,
yeah,
Dick.
yeah,
Your customers bought that
right.
business for you."
Yeah, and Dick being who he is kind of pushed back, but he said, I had some time to reflect on that. It made a lot of sense. And any success we have is because of our customers, and we have amazing customers in our community, and they're loyal and faithful and just all around good people. I think we ought to make the livability of our city better for them and for our kids, and that's also it's good for business too. If the community is healthy and doing well, everyone does well, and we've got to get there. Well, I don't think we're there yet.
Well, you brought me to my next topic that as I enter my 5th year here at this organization, I am really struggling to find a time of greater impact than the time that I spent with you and 55 other second and third generation business owners. And allow me, if you will, Bill, to set the stage for our listeners. I got a call from Bill probably about, I would say, a year and a half ago. And so it's proof that it takes some time to put things together that are going to have a big impact. Bill said, "Boy, I really like what the chamber's willing to take on despite incredible odds against us, being outnumbered largely by facing some dynamics at city council and state government that are not exactly business
Mhm.
friendly, as we would call them. But you said, I gotta see more of my peers willing to be involved in this community and better this community." And it after that conversation, you shared a similar conversation with Dick Withnell, and I shared a similar conversation with Larry Tokarski. Based on your conversation with me, Ryan Hazelbaker shoots me a text. He's feeling the same way. Alex Casebeer
Mhm.
shoots me a text. He's feeling the same way. And we started to get a small group together to say, hey, maybe we can have a conversation about this. Could you tell our listeners what occurred 2 weeks ago at the chamber office for 1 hour of time
Yeah.
from 4 to 5 p.m.? What happened?
What happened was we had a room full of amazing people, and what's cool about that, it wasn't a chamber event.
No.
It was second and third generation business owners in our local community from as far as, Mill City to Salem, Kaiser, Staten, people who care. And what we asked was, please show up. And when you and I and Dick put the list together, we weren't looking for anyone on a certain political spectrum. It was nowhere near that. It was business owners that care about our community. Second and third generation guys who some of them, frankly, maybe are really comfortable right now. And hats off to their grandfather and father and maybe great grandfather as well. But it was a calling saying, hey, don't forget where you come from, what we have going on here today, and we need your help. And what a phenomenal um, outpouring of folks to take time away. You say it was an hour, it probably costs everyone 2 hours, right? Because you got to travel to get here, and you got to go home. Um, but what a phenomenal outpouring of support for our community in that group. And I think we're going to have maybe a meeting or 2 more with them and get them more engaged, and a lot of them don't know, a lot of people, I think, especially today, we're quick to think, "Oh, well, let's move on to the next thing." And then the most current thing right now that we can think about that was a huge success for our business community was getting the employee paid payroll tax removed or voting it down. We got it on the ballot, and then the voters voted that down. I think that was a huge success for our community. But that's not going away. And, we're gonna need everyone to be engaged and continue moving that ball down the field, um, for further success with our community. So that's what happened. We got everyone together in a room, and we just, basically we didn't talk about anything in depth other than, "We're gonna need your help. You're here, and we know you're here. Thank you." That's all it was.
I was reflecting with Lena Prine afterwards, who we share a lot of conversation on political outlook, on health of the community. And I mean, I was really overwhelmed. That room had an incredible energy in it. People were not I think people in there who maybe have been on the sidelines suddenly saw we're not on the sidelines. If we get in action, if we go and play in the game,
Mhm.
we're not going to be alone playing.
Sure.
And that was really encouraging for individuals like Lena and I that are tasked with mobilizing people
Right.
to share their voice and share the business perspective. Quite honestly, in a state that is oftentimes turned its back to the small business community and what creates healthy economic ecosystems. And when I say that, I talk about paychecks being received. Um, not everybody is going to be in the role of signing the front of a paycheck. So we think about the people who are signing the back of a paycheck,
Right.
providing for their families and providing opportunities and being able to take that vacation someday that they thought of and or buying a home or buying the watch their son wants or a pair of shoes. I mean, those
Sure.
are things that we've almost been taught are bad.
Mhm.
Like profit's a bad
Right.
word. Profit is not a bad word.
It's not.
And the ability for people to reach goals financially is something that I think is very important for the entrepreneurial spirit, not to reach a status at
Mhm.
all, but to
Right.
have the autonomy and freedom to make your own choices for what you want for you and your family on and you define
Sure.
what quality of life means.
No, you're exactly right. As a small business owner, seeing gains by my team is amazing. And I've seen them from, not a very pleasant looking apartment building to a home. Open our first bank account at 30 years old. I've seen that. I've helped with that. Educating the employees on why is that important. Lots of reasons. You need to have a bank account, and It's too bad you're at 30 and just now starting, but that's okay.
Better to start
Yeah,
now than not start at all.
and the next thing you know that they had a car that would break down 3 out of 5 days on the way to work. Now they're in a position where, oh, we've got a new to me car, right? It's not brand new, but guess what? It's dependable and they're safe with their family inside it as well. So yeah, to your point, profit is good, and I used to say when I worked for other people, if it's good for the company, that's going to be good for me, and it was, and it that paid off so much for me, and it has for my employees as well. If we're doing well, they're doing well, because if you, I don't know any business owners that don't view it this way. That if you don't have good people, you're not successful. So in order to maintain the good people, you got to take care of them.
I am absolutely baffled by the individuals who come to me and say the big bad business community.
Right.
Show me one owner in this city that is not taking incredible care of their
Sure.
employees, and I'll show you an employer who's losing every
Mhm.
one of them.
Right. Right.
And so we're at a time where if we take care of our employees and build a culture of respect and aspirational leadership and wanting to be a part of their community, and yes, take care of your family and you first. We're here and we need your help, but we're not going to ever ask you to do this before your family.
Right.
And we
Right.
understand order of operations and how the heart and mind work. I've just been so impressed by Salem's small business community, and you've been an incredible leader in that space. This is a conversation with Bill Riecke, owner and president of Bark Boys Inc. You have a landscape division. You do a lot of things that are special. Before we close with my last question, real quick, Bill, what's the experience like if you've never purchased Bark Dust from Bark Boys ever before? Tell me how it works, and how would somebody best get a hold of you to do what seems like a simple task, but they're about to get some blue collar, great award winning service.
Sure, sure. Great question. So, number of ways, right? You can find us on the internet, barkboys.net. You can call and we'll help you right over the phone. If you call us with rough dimensions, we can calculate how much you're going to need for your project. You can come in, you can park your vehicle in our parking lot, come into the office. Someone from my team is going to help you, if not me. We also have a drive-up window, so you don't have to exit your vehicle. You pull up the drive-through window. You're sitting in your pickup or your SUV with a trailer behind it. Tell us what your project is. We'll tell you the best product to help you with that project, and we'll get you out of there, get you over to where you need to get loaded, get you loaded, and you're on your way to start your project. And oftentimes we'll get pictures back from customers say, "Hey, this, I ordered this product, I got this product, and this is the end result." So it's pretty neat. Those are the ways you can do business with us.
I can't think of a quicker way to make any facility look more a quick beautification project than some new bark dust. I saw you have the red rock,
Yeah, cinder rock.
cinder rock.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just so many options. If you're listening, give Bark Boys a chance, and I think you'll be really pleasantly enjoy the experience. Bill, in closing, tell me what you're most excited for in the year ahead.
Growth. The growth of our team professionally. Some of their families are growing. They're growing personally as well. Of course, I want to see the business grow. I'm just excited for where we'll go year over year, and 2024 is going to be no different in terms of growth for us. I think it's an exciting time for our community. I think there's some exciting things coming up with the city councilors and the mayor race and things like that. I think it's a really good time. It's election year. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be exciting.
There's going to be a lot of activity. Salem is a spot you don't want to sleep on. Great conversation today with Bill Riecke. Bill, thank you so much for taking the time and for being a leader to your peers. You're not preaching ever at them, but you're asking them to walk not behind you, but side by side with you, and that's recognized and noted. One last thing in closing: when you become a first citizen, you're a first citizen forever. Bill, I'll also remind you, when you're awarded Business of the Year, you are a Business of the Year award winner forever. So, congratulations to you and your family, and thank you so much for sharing some time on the Salem Chamber podcast.
One thing I will say about the Business of the Year award is thank you, and we will hold that very near and dear to us. But you know, one thing I failed to mention during that is two things. A guy by the name of Orrin Posner owns Lane Forest Products in Eugene, and I talk to him every Thursday. They I think about 300 employees strong. They do the same thing we do on a much larger scale. But I talk to that man every Thursday. Sometimes it's a 2-word conversation. Other times it's longer. But he has invested in me, and it means a lot to me. So I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't mention him and his mentorship he's had over the last 5 years of me owning that business. It means more to me than he'll probably ever know. But the other biggest point about business of the year on a personal note that I failed to mention was that Jennifer and I were sitting in our home. We are talking about, oh, we've got the luncheon coming up, and we're both very excited. And she, by far, is the brains of the operation, and behind me all the way. And any success I have is probably more so her success because she guides me a lot. But as we're talking about that, with a house full of 6 kids, they often only listen to what they want to listen to. And my 2 older kids, Bill and Brooklyn, both said, "What's the luncheon for?" I was like, "Hey, we won business of the year. It's pretty awesome." And they both wanted to come, and they both got up on the stage, and they're both there. And at times, I think when you have teenage kids, sometimes the daughter doesn't get along with the mom, and the son doesn't get along with the dad, and you're thinking about different things, and sometimes it's a challenging time period in teenagers' lives. And having been a dad for the first time, I'm still learning as I go, but what an honor for me to have my 2 oldest kids up there on the stage with us to accept that award on behalf of the hard work of our team. That was huge for me, and I'll never forget having Bill and Brooklyn up there with me.
Well, God willing, we're going to see Bill and Brooklyn as business owners themselves and following in your wife and you steps, Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your dedication to this community, mentoring, understanding, and being humble, but serving this country. We are honored to have you and wonderful to celebrate the great business that is Park Boys, Inc. This has been a conversation with Bill Riecke on the Salem Chamber Podcast. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Salem Chamber Podcast. The Salem Chamber is a 501c6 not-for-profit organization representing nearly 1,100 businesses in the greater Salem area. For additional information, please visit salemchamber.org. This has been a production of Dan Johnson and Lena Prine on the Salem Chamber's professional staff team.